I think our first trip to that area was probably in 1959, because we didn't get there till late '58. But someone took us down to, and we drove along the beach, and they showed us this piece of vacant land that the mission had just recently been able to lease. It hadn't had time to do any developing on it, but that place really has grown up to be a very special place to me and to most of our Thai Baptists for sure. The early years, of course, I was in language school, and I don't know quite how fast all the development began, but I guess by the time we had moved out to Chaching Sao, there was some work had been started, and it seemed like it was in the mid-'60s that we began being able to use the camp, or maybe before that. We had some Baptist youth camps down there. At first it was quite rustic, but still usable. We had the basic 6 buildings, I think, is what was put up to start with. And as time went by, I had the privilege and responsibility of being camp manager quite a few times. It was just very much of a part-time job where we would go down and pay Kunjarun and his family as they looked after the place, and make a few suggestions about doing things different and some of the flowers and plants and things like that. But that was not my big cup of tea, so it was mostly up to them to do those kind of things. But as time went by, we did have more and more use of it. And of course, our own people had first choice at making scheduling meetings there. And later on, I had to put my foot down. One time I was camp manager, and these young American-looking boys in their black pants and white shirts were out there measuring off the front lot there between the buildings and the front fence. And Kunjarun told me that they'd been asking him about getting all this sporting equipment, all kind of balls and other equipment, and so I went down and talked with them and found out they were Mormon boys that had scheduled the camp. And I told them that, well, I was sorry to tell them about that. According to the rules and regulations, it had to be only Christians that used the camp. And so I contacted our lady at the mission office and asked her to send their money back and write them a nice letter and tell them, that was restricted to Christians, and we were sorry that we couldn't accommodate them. So I did have to deal with that once in a while. Maxine and I were helping at the Banglamung Church a lot of that time too, so that fit in with some of our other assignments like that. So the camp moved along and basically kind of added things along and making it more beautiful, and probably the new water pump and different things like that were added as money was available. We didn't have a big budget, but it seemed to take care of it along with the fees. And then our Thai brethren began to get interested in it and use it more often, and we started getting some special gifts from retired missionaries and other people that we were able to make improvements, put in some air conditioning and repainting and make it more comfortable and more attractive to people that just wanted to use it, Baptists that wanted to go there to stay either on vacation or short rest, and different church groups. So I don't have the statistics on how the place grew as far as the people using it, but when we left to come home to retire, things were moving pretty good, and I had encouraged, our folks even out in the country who hadn't been there very much, but we had some of our pastors' camps there and some of our East Thailand church camps there and different individual churches that began to use it. And so as time came by, went by, in my thinking, the camp was something that if anybody wanted to help all the churches, that was one way to do it without singling out any certain ones. And because they all had access and it was reasonably priced that they could use the facilities. And moving on a ways, after we were retired, we didn't get a lot of news from Thailand for a while, but one day I got this long letter that made me very happy. It was from Kun Nori Rat, or Kun Lily, whom I had worked with in our Asian Baptist Youth Conference. She's a very experienced professional businesswoman and very dedicated Christian member at New Hope. And I found out that she was the camp manager and had been for several years, and she gave me a kind of a report on all the different improvements and the things that had been done and making it, more and more comfortable and usable, and the fact that the number of people using it was growing for church meetings, but also for private vacations and things like that. And so the money was coming in, more of it, that made it possible to make more of those improvements. And I'm really not sure who the new camp manager is since she resigned. I think somebody said that the reservations now were being made through the mission office, and maybe someone up there is kind of in charge, but I'm glad to hear. And I know the annual convention meetings in April have increased in size, and the adding the air conditioning and things to the auditorium has been a great help for that, and kitchen facilities. So the camp, to me, is one of my favorite things to think about, because it has, I think, had a big part in our church growth and in our church development and discipleship of our members. And I know that there's a church meeting down there now at the camp, the John Tian Baptist Church, and I've had good reports from some of our folks who have come as missionaries after we left, that the camp is just flourishing right now, and that makes me feel very happy. We liked it so well in all the meetings, that became our vacation oasis. And, you can't beat it for convenience. We could drive down there from Chachoengsao in a short time and take a few groceries along with us and use the facilities and enjoy playing Scrabble and listening to tapes. And Mom got a little bit, had to talk to me a little bit about taking too much work down there, but as you know, I spent a lot of time writing this thing and another, Bible lessons and things that we used in the work, and so I could let her rest and do her thing, and sit out on the little porch there on cabin number 2 in the breeze and listen to the waves and do a lot of my writing. And but I always shut it down by noontime so we could have the rest of the day to do our thing and make a trip to the market or a restaurant somewhere. So that was literally our vacation home for probably the last 10 years or more that we were in Thailand. I got enough driving, traveling, going to all the different parts of the country in my work, and so we were just glad to get down there and take it easy. And most of you, if you knew Kun Jarun at all, he liked to talk and visit a little bit, and he would stop by and take up a little bit of my time, but they were pretty considerate of us, and usually we were there in August or September when it wasn't being used a lot by the churches, so it was nice and quiet. And when our son came to visit us in '92, he had some memories to share with us about earlier years, which I'll let him tell you sometime if you ask him about them. But it was kind of a homecoming for him too, because we'd always had such a good time down there during mission meeting and mission retreat and family vacation times. And so it was kind of our tropical paradise place right there on the Gulf of Siam. And being my Scottish way of thinking and frugality and so on with money, that fit right in with it, you know, and it was so comfortable and relaxing. So that camp was very special to Mom and I and to our family, as well as to the good use that it's being put to now. And I wish it was a little bit closer by, actually. It would be fun to go back there again. We didn't swim. I don't think we swam any of the last 10 years, but we enjoyed listening to the water and the wind and looking out and being able to see those things too. Thank you.
What about some of the memories of like fun nights and other sporting events?
Listen, I'm glad my son remembers those things. I talk about myself so much that, of course, I don't ever get tired of it, but I don't want to overdo it. I maybe from our work with the kids back home or something. But anyhow, and we had the contest that they wouldn't let me be in later on because had the guys lined up with the sheet over their, all but the bottom, their mid calves down, and the wives had to guess which one was their husband. Well, my leg later on was kind of a giveaway, so nobody put me in that game. But we enjoyed fun night. We enjoyed and appreciated Chuck and Jenny Garcia for suggesting us having a Macy's parade at the Thanksgiving retreat. So we got that started, and Maxine and I usually got to lead that, being the top jokesters, I guess. But, you know, we got to be Jack and Jill one time and threw the paper water on Max Alexander. And then we got to do a sample of our old-timey street preaching like we used to do back in the 60s. And the Cavalry girls were so good to help us with the posters and the Bible verses and the song sheets with that. And I'm sure y'all remember our version of the hula on our third and last parade in 1993. And I think I told you, and I may have showed you, that I had this certificate from the Kodak Hula Dancing School there in Honolulu, showing that I was a graduate of that school. But it'd been a long time since I'd done it, so Mom did a lot better hula than I could do, but at least we were out there acting crazy. And we really enjoyed those parades, and we enjoyed the sporting events. All of you remember our famous, memorable Thanksgiving Bowl football games. I mean, I wish that had been on national TV, and we could have sold a lot of advertising on that. And especially the year that a lot of our MK guys came back, including my son and several others of his age group. And I think what was the score on that, son? I think y'all took the old man to the woodshed on that one. But it was a very competitive game, I'll tell you that. And of course, finally we had to give it up because some people got hurt by being out getting tackled or blocked or something off the field. I don't remember that, all the details, but changed it to softball, and that was okay. And And we had the races around the camp there, you know. I know I've seen a slide on that not long ago with all the guys and the girls lined up there to run. So, and all of you, I remember more than any of you probably the night that Aunt Maxine went in to play for the ladies team in volleyball. And she scored 16 saves or 16 serves in a row at age 68. So I think a lot of the girls, especially maybe the older people, were surprised at what an athlete she was, and I never did probably give her all the headlines about her athleticism in college and softball and tennis and being assistant to the coach and helping him and so on. But anyhow, and she tried to teach me how to play tennis down there too, by the way, which didn't work out so well. Okay, those meetings, we always look forward to them. Both the business meetings and the retreats, I think they were the two of the highlights of our missions life, and pulling us together and giving us time to spend time together, both in worship and in discussion meetings and games and contests afterwards there in the not the mess hall, what do we call it, the dining room. And I'm going to brag on myself now because I beat Charles Ray for the championship of the Scrabble tournament one year. And he was one of our better Scrabble players. And so I hold on to that because I always got that memory. He asked me a number of times after that to play him again, and I never would because I didn't want a defeat coming on the end of my victory. Maybe I do joke around some, but fun night, I can't say it was a highlight because it wasn't. We had some great prayer times and good preaching and interesting business discussions on the budget and all that, which was interesting in another way, but fun night was always fun to me, and getting to be in charge once in a while, I got to pull out some old stuff that, like the Siamese national anthem, that a lot of our folks had never heard about. Apparently, well, I had taught it to some RA boys before we ever came to Thailand, you know, the one about O Watagu Siam, O Watagu Siam, O Watagu, see, honoring Siam. But we did that one night, and folks started catching on to it, and they thought it was pretty good. One other game that I thought of, which I really enjoyed, was I asked all the missionaries to write things that they had done special in their life, or in school or sports or whatever, and maybe sort of humorous things, some of them, and send it in. So that night I would, you know, when I was directing the meeting, I would say, I did so and so and so, who am I? And let people guess, you know, who they were. And it was fun for people to think about it. I remember Pat Brown, her said that I won I think it was a 200-yard dash in the state high school track tournament in Alabama. Well, I don't know if anybody knew that she had actually done that before, so things like that. And of course, I had to insert a couple things about myself. One of them was I pastored 10 churches in 9 years. Who am I? Any preacher knows that that's a record. You don't get to stay that long, you know, and not have a record. Well, of course, I don't know if anybody guessed it, but the thing was that I had pastored a field of 6 churches when I first got out of seminary, so it didn't sound like my record was quite so bad after that. And another thing that I got to mention was that when we left our church in Alabama to go to Thailand, that the church family was so distraught and sad and depressed and down about it, what they're going to do and all that. It took them a long time to get a preacher. It took them 3.5 days to get a new pastor. We left on Monday morning, and he came to work on Wednesday night. So I think that's another record that's pretty hard to beat, and it shows you how distressed our church family was when we left. Well, I fixed up a trophy for our football game that year that I was in charge of the sports, and it was a broken cup that we'd found in a little china shop somewhere. And I think we kept it at the mission office, but for some reason, somebody must have slipped in and made off with it and probably pawned it or sold it for a big amount of money. But it did get gone, and I don't know what happened to it. Okay, well, I don't like to mention this, the way things are these days, but I was a rather unusually looking bride one time in a wedding down there. What do they call that? Well, in the States when they used to do it, it was all guys dressed up. But I was the bride, and who was the groom? Let's see. I think it was Dr. Gocher, Dr. Joanne Gocher, I think was the groom. And Aunt Rosemary was the father of the bride who had the shotgun. And Aunt Margie Shelton was the pastor, the preacher. And the most attractive person in it was the flower girl. That was Uncle Ray Shelton. We had this down in front of cabin number 2 back in the early years. And he came prancing across there, spreading those rose petals just like a champion. I don't know if he'd actually done that in a wedding or not, but I had kind of forgotten about it, and then I saw a video here a while back that reminded me. But I had one of those plastic inner tubes around my head to hold down my veil. And I guess I was one of the taller brides that ever got married at the camp. And then one fun night, somebody talked me into wearing Maxine had a very loose muumuu that I was able to wear with my corncob pipe and my bonnet. Now, I don't know if we could do that anymore, with all the different situation in society and all, but I kind of still remember it. I don't know if we even have fun night anymore the way our mission is structured, but that was a great time to just let loose and act crazy and stupid and like a kid and be your own self for a little while.